Okay, hello Paul. Thank you very much for coming to Durham University Business School to talk to us. Now you're the CEO of the International Integrated Reporting Council, and your past roles have included being President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, Director of the Financial Reporting Council in the UK, and of particular interest to me, you've also chaired the Executive Committee of the Prince of Wales Accounting for Sustainability project and the Sustainability Group of FEE, the accounting body, the representative organisation of the accounting body in Europe. Yep. Now those are interest to me because I'm a professor of accounting here at the business school. I'm researching integrating sustainability into accounting, reporting and assurance practices. I was on your Capital's Technical Collaboration Group, and I've been involved in other standard setting arenas too around sustainability. For example, I'm on the Global Reporting Initiative Stakeholder Council, and as a member of ICAS, I'm also on their Sustainability Committee. So I'd like to start by asking you, where does your interest in sustainability come from, and what does it mean to you?
Okay, well, blame it on the better half is probably the best way of answering that. My wife is an academic in not in accounting or finance, but in climate change and energy mitigation. So it's been embedded in my life for a very long time. And in fact, when I sold my business back in the end of 1999, the first thing I did when I had nothing to do was to go on, I did a diploma in environmental management just to understand the basics. And so that's where, I've always been interested, but never had time in my previous business to really use that interest.
But you sort of took that to the next level, did you not? Chairing a board for the Accounting for Sustainability project. So it's more than just a partner's influence, is it not?
No, well, it's where it started because she's very passionate.
So tell me what it means to you now.
What really it meant to me was that when I really looked at it, it became apparent to me that the sustainability, and when we talk about sustainability, we're talking about environmental and social matters that impact, rather than a sustainable business in those sort of terms. And I think where it became very evident to me that it just wasn't on the agenda of the capital markets, which is where I was and understood. And when I spoke to people in my days at the ICAW and at the FRC and things, they really thought of it as something that you'd do while you were having a social discussion, rather than anything that was going to be coming into business and into the capital market and needed to do so. And I just felt that I could use my position to try to influence that. I had the opportunity to move an agenda, in my own small way. So I spoke a lot about it in the sort of early 2000s. And the Prince of Wales was at my President's dinner of the ICAW, and I'd spoken about sustainability, and so was he. And he asked me to join his new project on accounting for sustainability, and that's really when I started to spend time thinking about it. I mean, it was only a volunteer post, but it was very, very interesting.
So what role do you think accountants do have then in progressing that social and environmental sustainability agenda?
Well, I think that there's always more than one path, isn't there? There's to me, when you're talking about accountants, okay, so there's different elements of the accounting profession. If we're talking about the accountants in business or in practice, it is about understanding how the social and environmental areas actually impact the business. So it's not so much the CSR side; it's the business model. And it's evident today that climate change and other things are impacting many business models, especially of the larger businesses and those that are impacted. And therefore you have to, the accountant, if they don't see that as their domain, to provide information and insight for the business, then they're not performing their role.
Do you think accountants need to be specifically trained in issues around sustainability, or do you think that there's so few accountants that go into roles around sustainability that we don't need to train all of them? I'm asking because it was something that cropped up in a discussion I was having with a group of accountants about education specifically, and there was a view that so few accountants go into sustainability careers, we shouldn't be educating all of them around sustainability.
Well, I think, can I be blunt? I think that's nonsense.
Please be, yes.
I really do. I think, when you train, I mean, you and I both trained to be a chartered accountants, and at the end of the day, you cover all of the areas that impact finance and the financial side of business. And, are you an expert in tax? Are you an expert in auditing? Well, I know quite a lot about it, but I'm not an expert. And so anybody who purports to be a chartered accountant, in my view, should have a very good and thorough knowledge around sustainability, environmental and social areas, because otherwise they won't understand how that might impact. That doesn't mean they have to be experts, right? And in fact, I would say that it isn't necessarily that they're going to go into the sustainability field, but to be ignorant is bordering on actually not being able to stand up and call yourself a chartered accountant.
Because sustainability impacts on every aspect of a business almost. So
it does.
And accountants are fairly central to that, to determining and informing decisions around strategy.
And the other, I mean, I totally agree. And we pursued that particular route, but there's another route in that just as you as an individual will give money to charity or do things that are good for society or whatever it is, so should and do businesses. And again, it can't just be a totally separate department that thinks about these sorts of things. It needs to be embedded in the way the business operates. Now, I'm not going into the license to operate type scenario there. I'm just saying that a good business will be contributing, and you can't just say that's their job, right? It may be those that are going to find the right places to contribute, that the business is going to contribute to, should be doing that. But nonetheless, you should be aware of what that might mean. Ignorance is no excuse.
I'm actually really surprised, having just done some interviews with board directors of top companies in a couple of countries, and board directors often have accounting backgrounds, how little they understand actually the social and environmental issues that can impact on a business and how that impact occurs. And that, I think, is quite worrying. And
I do see a huge change in that, though. I mean, I agree with you. I'm not surprised by your by the outcomes of your research through your interviews. But I have to say that I've seen, if you take the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a real change in that area. Now, it may well be that they're not paying attention, just like the discussion with the accountants. But nonetheless, there's every opportunity for them to understand. And it's very troubling that that's the case, because again, if you think about the whole business idea, if you are a board member or a C-suite in a business, you have to understand this.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, the country where it was better understood was South Africa, where integrated reporting is mandatory, and they saw integrated reporting as a sort of a framework or a discipline, as it were, that kept them focused on these social and environmental sustainability issues in the face of investors who sort of pulled them the other way and were, that really the encouragement is to think short term from there. So they welcomed that framework. Do you think integrated reporting in some ways is a response to a failure of sustainability reporting then? Because sustainability reporting has been around for 2 or 3 decades now.
No, I don't actually. I don't see it as a failure of sustainability reporting. It depends what was the intention of sustainability reporting, if you like. I think it's a failure of the corporate reporting system rather than, I think, where integrated reporting has been so remarkable, the momentum has been so remarkable, is because there was a gap, there was a vacuum. And I see that in the system rather than necessarily in isolation, because I see it just as much as a failure. If you talk about failure, it's the failure of financial reporting as well as sustainability reporting in other areas. And it isn't necessarily those that are in it, it's those that are responsible across that really should be looking at themselves, and now is starting to happen around the world. But I think the key here is what is sustainability reporting aimed at? Yeah. So if sustainability reporting is aimed at the broader public and as I was saying, the corporate social responsibility, then I think it does a great job. If it's aimed at the capital markets, I think that's where the weaknesses have been apparent.
And I guess it's changed some behaviour by giving some visibility to historical social and environmental impacts, but that sort of convergence that we were talking about before, about directors being more aware now of the impacts of social and environmental issues on their business, that hasn't been highlighted so well through sustainability reporting, perhaps because sustainability reporting has been looking backwards and it hasn't necessarily been connected with the overall strategy of the organisation. Do you see integrated reporting playing a role there in making that, in making those connections better?
Well, I have to say, Carol, you're probably one of the people who saw this earlier than most, coming from a strong interest in sustainability and reporting and looking at integrated reporting. Many people, certainly in the initial couple of years, saw integrated reporting as a replacement for sustainability reporting. Now, where I come from on this is both sides that you're talking about. Let's talk about the horizon, as Mark Carney talks about the tragedy of horizons. So I think there's an horizon point and there's also a silo point, right, which we talked about. So if we take the silo point, it was the specialists in CSR, in social, in the sustainability area, who were doing some very good work, very good reporting, very good understanding of what was going on. But it was seen as that, that over there, rather than in the mainstream. And I think what integrated reporting is doing is bringing, as you talked about in South Africa, with the different feedback, is that it's bringing those matters to the attention of the board. And sometimes the matters are brought to the attention of the board and so, well, they're not relevant, specifically to our strategy and our business model. And that's fine, as long as the risks and the opportunities have been understood. So that's one side. Your argument around the horizons, as I call it, is also very true, because I think it's the same with financial reporting, if truth be told. We've tended to look in the rearview mirror, right? It was very interesting. So I'll just as an anecdote, I was looking at our own, the IIRC, the tin pot outfit that we are, but nonetheless, I was looking at our own KPIs and noticing that the new dashboard that we've created for ourselves shows last year and this year, right? So we, adoption rates and various other things. And I was thinking, why are we that? We should be worrying about targets. How are we getting on against what we thought we'd get on?
Forward-looking strategy.
And where are we looking into the future? And that's what's been missing, is that idea of the fact that not only are you talked about short-termism in the investor side of things, the capital market side, but not only are we not looking forward more than a quarter or more, but we're not looking forward more than a year. And businesses that don't look forward more than a year are unlikely to be sustainable businesses. And I mean that in the sense of businesses that have a long life and are going to create value over the long term.
It's interesting you should say that, because a director of a very large company was explaining to me the thought processes and the way his mind and mindset changed as they were going through the process of approving their integrated report, their very first one. He had never thought about ESG issues before. He described himself as a numbers man, and he explained the process of going into shock almost as he realized how significant these environmental, social and governance issues were for achieving strategy. And he told me, you know, he sort of almost stopped in his tracks, changed the way he approached his director work completely, and really got clued up on ESG issues. He felt it was something he had to know about himself. So he explained it as a real sort of a shock and awakening for him. And that was the integrated reporting process.
Glad to hear it.
And that probably doesn't surprise you, though.
I have to say, it delights me. But you know, when I travel around the world and things, it's talking to people and getting that feedback is why we all do it, I think.